Hello, ladies of the Radiant Woman Facebook group. I decided to come on, it's just going to be a brief video. I want to talk about fearful avoidant attachment, and I'm going to be doing a series about all the different attachment styles, but the one that I want to talk about today, and specifically, I just want to talk about what the causes of it are. We'll get into other stuff in other videos, but this is going to be about fearful avoidant attachment. Hi, Nancy. So if you are fearful avoidant attachment, or you know someone who is, this will just give you a little bit of insight into like what's going on and where is it coming from, so you can start to put the pieces together a little bit. So if you are fearful avoidant attachment, then that means that you have both a desire for intimacy and a fear of having intimacy. So you have both. So you want to be close to someone, and then at the same time you also fear getting too close, or when you start to get close, your nervous system starts to freak out a little bit. So in other words, you're going to have both anxious attachment and avoidant attachment showing up in your relationship. So both pieces you'll be seeing. So this typically comes from childhood. Not always, I'll talk about where else it could come from, but typically it starts from something in childhood. And there are really like three different things that could have happened. So the first one is that as a child, you may have experienced neglect or abuse or both. That's the first thing that may have caused that. The second one is that you got inconsistent like availability and messaging during childhood. Like you had a caregiver who was inconsistent in their availability. They were not emotionally responsive to your needs, or they could not be counted on to be emotionally responsive. So typically this happens because a parent was, or your caregiver was like preoccupied elsewhere. So it could have been that they have their own issues and they just really couldn't be there for you. Or there may have been someone else in the family who needed a lot of their time and attention, like maybe someone who was sick, or maybe they were sick. So children who are raised in these environments typically become pretty hyper vigilant for threat cues, which cues the anxious attachment, and at the same time, like threat cues meaning like they're going to lose the connection that they have with that person, with their caretaker, and at the same time, they're also afraid of too much intimacy because typically there was some kind of neglect or abuse that was happening, and also it is not always just directed at you. It could have been your parents' relationship. So that's the third thing, was that you were raised in a home situation where you experienced unsafety. So it could mean that your parents just had a really difficult relationship with each other. So there could have been physical or emotional abuse. And also there may have just been like a lot of fighting and shouting, and maybe it was a very chaotic place to be. And so it didn't really feel like your nervous system could regulate, didn't feel like you could be safe there. Hey! So out of this experience, what happens is that we kind of integrate and learn that love is painful. And so this is then why we see that push-pull dynamic with the fearful avoidant, because I want love, but at the same time, I'm afraid of it. So that the person who should be giving you love, we've internalized, is also the person who hurts me, or the person who makes me feel unsafe. And so that typically is what gets taken out of that. And this is just built into the nervous system and the brain wiring, right, from all of those experiences. The other way that we can become fearful avoidant, it does not always happen as a result of a childhood experiences, although there may have been something in there, but it can also happen as a result or the emotional impact of a series of relationships that you've been in romantically. So it could have been a series of broken relationships where now I'm afraid to love again because I've been hurt in the past. Or it could even have been the result of just like one very traumatic or abusive, or one or two abusive or traumatic relationships, so that then we walk away and we're afraid to get too close to someone again, right? You become avoidant of the love that you also crave. This is not like avoidant attachment where you don't want love, you do, but you're afraid of it. There's some fear around that, right? Because either love hasn't worked out or it hasn't been safe. Maybe you picked men who hurt you in the past and you just don't trust men. That is another reason for the fearful avoidant attachment. And so all of these things lead to a huge level, whether it was from childhood or not, lead to a huge level of distrust of a potential partner. So it causes you to then be hot and cold with potential partners. often you really want them in the beginning, you're pining after them, and they start to get closer, and suddenly, I need my space, I need my distance, there's something wrong with this person, I can't trust them, and then we back away. So what this does is it tends to lead to a lot of broken relationships, or we get to the early phase of the relationships and then they don't make it beyond that because the other person starts to get too close to us and it scares you. So the fearful avoidance nervous system is chronically activated in this fight or flight mode, always looking for signs of danger, right? And so learning to self-regulate and healing some of what happened in the past and learning tools for being able to still the mind and the brain and the nervous system when it starts to go haywire, and actually be able to tell the difference between real threat and not threat when someone starts to get too close or when we get activated and start to doubt that they might be who they seem they are. These are the things that are really required for the fearful avoidance style so that you can actually have a relationship that is stable, that isn't full of drama and turmoil and chaos and breaking up and getting back together, as those things tend to go along with the fearful avoidant pattern. So I'll say that I was fearful avoidant after having been through some relationship stuff, got out the other side, and then when I met Eric, I still had not worked through that stuff. And so this is the work that I learned for myself that now I help my fearful avoidant clients do, or whatever your attachment style. But I had to learn how to not run away, how to not sabotage, and how to not actually make him the bad guy, because that is what my brain wanted to do. It was basically primed to see that way, that I would be in danger, that somebody else would be dangerous, right, after these experiences. And so I had to learn how to tell the difference between a good guy and a bad guy, right? Someone who would be good for me and someone who would not. And that is not easy for a fearful avoidant because everybody looks like not what they are. And so how to stay open instead of closing off, which meant learning to trust, learning how to teach my nervous system that I'm safe, I'm okay, I'm not in danger, right? Because my brain wanted to go down a whole nother track. And so this is something that absolutely can be done. I did it myself. I know it can be done. I do this work with clients, and it is continued work, right? That gets easier with time, and you'll get to the place where you do feel safe with that person, but it still requires that you have to work on this because it is in the nervous system, right? And so it requires that you do choose the right man for this work, because if you don't choose the right man, then you just actually re-ingrain all of that, right? And so it means you'll have to rewire a lot of what's in your love blueprint, because having a relationship that is safe and secure actually goes against all that wiring that we have if we're fearful avoidant or if we become that way. So Valita said, yeah, this is me. I complain about not getting intimacy, but then pull away when I start feeling vulnerable. Yes, absolutely. That is what that looks like. It creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yep, 100% creates that self-fulfilling prophecy. And the difficult part is until you're with someone and it's been tested, you don't know if that person is going to be the one that it's safe to do this work with. So something that's really important there is choosing a partner who is going to be safe for this work. All right, so that's what I wanted to share today. I'm going to sign off now, but I will see you soon. So much love. Bye.